but puts it into his own hands and is going to shoot himself in the head. But to really understand Rick's mindset, I have to revisit a certain scene. Sure! There are a few things that terrified me growing up as a kid. The Undertaker, the Tower of Terror at Disney. That ride. I was so scared riding that thing as a kid. I tried to take my seatbelt off mid-ride. It wouldn't have worked, but that's how scared I was. And it didn't help that they showed this scary video right before the ride started.
Now, something is about to happen that will change all that.
Okay, that's not even like mildly scary, but still, I was 5. I should be nowhere near something called the Tower of Terror. But another thing was The Walking Dead. I remember my brother showing me this show on Netflix when I was 10, and for the life of me, I could not get past that damn intro. Something about it induced a level of fear in me that just made me say, yeah, we're good here. I'd rather watch Cartoon Network. But it was during my middle school years when I mustered up the courage to finally watch the show all by myself. Every weekend at 9 p.m., I was seated to watch peak television, and that intro was still terrifying. Just me in a dark room on a Sunday night, so your anxiety is probably at peak levels for the week. So since it's October, I wanted to go back and rewatch The Walking Dead and see how much the scariness factor held up. But I was immediately stopped in my tracks by season 1. This season has a totally different tone. The setting is unique. The zombies were just freestyling shit, and Shane still had a full head of hair. But the biggest thing that stood out to me was how awful of a predicament Rick Grimes was thrown into. Imagine you wake up from a coma, and instead of being greeted by your friends and family or even hospital staff, you are met with silence.
Shane.
Where y'all at?
And some dead flowers. And just like those flowers, you are parched.
When I came down.
Because you haven't drank anything for weeks. So after drinking some water from the sink, you step out of your room to see that the hospital completely looks abandoned. Papers on the floor, wires hanging from the ceiling. But you're still probably like, damn, maybe the housekeeping unit is on strike or something. So you continue to look around until you see a heavily decomposed body on the ground in a hallway. Alright, y'all got me. I'm scared. Great joke. A little over the top with the lights flickering, but still great work. Now where the cameras at?
That don't work. There's no way out of this one.
Then you turn around and see bullet holes across a wall and a chained up door with "don't open, dead inside" written across it. Yeah, what type of ghetto ass hospital is this? This how y'all label y'all morgue room? But then somebody starts trying to open the door, and eventually you see a grayish hand with long fingernails bust through the door's cracks. So you finally come to the realization that yeah, all them late nights you stayed up playing Resident Evil finally took their toll, because now you're having nightmares about the game. Alright, I'm being serious now. Is there a worse way to wake up from a coma? 1 second you were with your best friend, talking about women.
Guys with Lori, man.
And taking down bad guys. Then you get shot, thrown into a coma, and wake up in this scary ass hospital. The closest thing I've ever had to this was taking an after school nap and waking up in the dark, sweating, confused, with my alarm going off. Like, this is truly a one-of-one experience. Never mind, but at least Rick didn't have to wake up with his meat out. Now when Rick does venture outside, he sees dead, decomposed bodies stacked upon other dead, decomposed bodies, abandoned military vehicles, rundown buildings, and the torso of a human crawling towards him. I can't stress this enough. He just woke up from a long-term coma, and he's been thrust into a timeline of doom and despair. So like any confused and scared married man would, he looks for his family, only to find out they aren't home. So not only is he dealing with the living dead, he might have just got divorced. Then during his grieving, he gets his bell rung by this kid. And quick side note, nobody takes as much blunt force head trauma on The Walking Dead than Rick Grimes. He gets concussed a lot in this show. Y'all thought that signature head tilt that he does is just him locking in? No, that's the CTE speaking to him. But luckily for Rick, he was in the care of Morgan and his son. And I know he's probably even more confused than when he woke up from that coma, because you're telling me after being out for weeks, I get maybe a couple hours of consciousness as I piece together what's going on and where my family could possibly be. Then I'm out again, and this sweaty black guy has a knife pointed in my face, talking about, did you get bit?
No, I got shot.
But after eating some food, Morgan, to the best of his abilities, explains to him what's going on. But then a car alarm goes off in the street, and remember how I said zombies were just freestyling? Well, Morgan's dead wife walks up to the door and starts looking through the peephole. Then she even starts turning the knob. I'm convinced if this house had a Ring camera, she would have started pressing that too. And even after Rick sits down, she's still trying to open the door, getting full rotation on the doorknob, talking to Morgan like, hey, you know my name is still on the house. Open up. But that was just one of the many feats these walkers pull off in this episode. Later, when Rick heads to downtown Atlanta to look for his family in a sheriff uniform.
Boy, he got that shit on though.
Look at the patch, it's fucking up.
On horseback, which, aside from probably being the best way to navigate swiftly in a cluttered city, is cool as fuck. No, before y'all even say it, stop D-running, bro, let it breathe. No, this is the pilot episode, and he's horseback riding into a heavily populated city with zombies, solo dolo, in the search of his family. This means something to me. But back to what I was saying about the scary walkers. So after being surrounded by a horde of walkers and having his horse eaten alive, Rick is left with no other choice but to crawl under this tank, only to be met on the other side by this. You know how scary this is? A zombie is hitting a pose as he menacingly stares you down while you are trapped on both sides. So after he kills a couple walkers, he not only accepts his fate, but puts it into his own hands and is going to shoot himself in the head. But to really understand Rick's mindset, I have to revisit a certain scene. No, too far. You deserve a separate video. But if Rick did walk in on this, I'm pretty sure he'd try to commit suicide here too. But the scene after this, he visited this home looking for gas, only to see this man's head tore up from a shotgun blast to the dome. I can't show the scene, but the top of his head is literally opened up like a pumpkin, and his wife laid out right next to him with the words, "God forgive us," written in blood on the wall. So to put this all into perspective, he went into his old neighborhood and it was overtaken by zombies. Then he goes to this relatively isolated home, sees that the couple living there would rather be dead than live out in this apocalypse. And now, in the big city, where the supposed safe haven site is located in, shows signs of a failed resistance and is overtaken by walkers. So in his mind, he's like, yeah, my family's probably dead, fuck this shit. But just as he's about to pull the trigger, he sees the opening to the tank and goes inside. But then he has to kill a walker that was inside the tank from point blank range. And that's another thing I wanted to talk about. Killing walkers is still a big deal to him. I know later in the show, the characters become desensitized to it. Like in the later seasons, killing a walker is how you get your day going. It's what the doctor recommends for good health. It keeps the blood young and the brain sharp. But right now, Rick is 24 hours into the apocalypse. Shooting a walker is still a big deal.
I'm sorry this happened to you.
But now alone in the tank, Rick grabs the gun he used to kill the walker and starts thinking about something. Maybe he was reflecting on the fact that he was seconds away from ending himself, or he's thinking about doing it again. But we'll never know because he gets contacted on the radio by another survivor, and that's how the episode ends.